Gacha games. They're a magical and mysterious genre of video games, catering to weeaboos and gambling addicts alike. A multi-billion-dollar enterprise nearly entirely monopolized by the glorious CCP, catering to our animalistic desire to take risks and collect trinkets. Unlike other, lesser mobile games, this is a genre where you don't pay to win, but rather pay to brag. If you haven't spent thousands of dollars, if you haven't borrowed large sums of money, if you aren't living in fear from loan sharks or about to lose your home, then you're not truly enjoying the gacha experience. Are gachas revenge for the opioid epidemic or the end game of capitalism? It's hard to tell. Either way, I can't stop playing them. I'll be right back. Hello everyone, RetroCon here. Gacha games have come a long way since the Neolithic days of Grand Blue Fantasy. Long gone are the days of games like Girls Front Line, a game where live 2D was reserved for the elites of society, while the rest of us common folk got stuck with PNGs. While games like Azure Lane and Ark Knights still have relevance today, either due to their unique gameplay or unique gameplay, gacha games continue to evolve and push boundaries, no doubt continuing the revolution towards their final form. The gacha games of today are utterly massive in scope. So large is their ambition that companies now employ hundreds of people and move millions in capital to produce them. But even with all that being said, it was still shocking to see the staggering 120 gigabyte download size that is Zenless Zone Zero. At that moment, I knew the genre had reached new levels of insanity. Now, I've been following Zenless Zone Zero since word first reached my corner of the internet, but it wasn't until I laid eyes upon the release trailer that I realized that I must download this game. This game is an amalgamation of a hack and slash and a fighting game, with a generous dose of gacha elements, all taking place within an urban fantasy city known as New Eridu. In this world, giant spatial phenomenons known as hollows have appeared and ravaged much of the world. These locations violently transform living beings trapped inside of them into abominations. Needless to say, these things want to take your life without your consent. Hollows have also attracted various organizations interested in uncovering artifacts and materials located within them. We play as one of two siblings who might or might not be in an incestuous relationship, but who am I to judge true love? Also, that's not really the point here. The actual point is that the siblings run one of these aforementioned organizations. In particular, they offer their services as proxies. A proxy in Zenless Zone Zero is essentially a manager for private military companies, allowing mercenaries, or agents as the game likes to put it, to run missions in the Hollows. Proxies, of course, are very illegal, and so the siblings opt to go the incognito route and run their organization under the facade of a videotape store right in the middle of the city. You use the siblings to take on commissions and utilize agents to accomplish them. Enemies that stand in your way are concussed to death as your agents bash them into submission. Completing commissions earns you renown in the form of internet levels, resources, as well as cold hard cash. Use them to increase the competency of your agents. Now, what would Zenless Zone Zero be without the primordial forces of gacha, heavily influencing the natural order of the world? You will of course have to pull for agents, but you also have to pull for W engines, which offer substantial boosts to your characters through questionable means. Regardless, they are essential to their lifespans. Lastly, you can pull for bang boos. They serve as combat aids. Bang boos are kinda like gnomes. Innocent looking on the outside, but on the inside, who knows what machinations lurk within. A generous gacha would typically have 2 to 3% pull rates for your rarest characters, or offer you resources to make plenty of pulls. But our folks over at MiHoYo have a different concept of generosity, with an abysmal 0.6% rate. Very low. It doesn't help that MiHoYo is also very infamous for the breadcrumbs of free rolls they dish out. And I know about pity rolls, but that doesn't really count. It's 10 less than your average gacha. Now, they do make up for it, partially, with aesthetics. If there was one word I had to use to describe Zenless Zone Zero, it would be flashy. Almost epileptic seizure-inducing flashy. I don't think I've ever really found a game that makes my eyes sizzle as much as this one. Everything in this game is tailored around being flashy and cool, and I do mean everything. The dialogue scenes, the comic book narrations, the animated portions, the gacha system, the various menus, and of course, the fighting system itself, with its combat animations, parries, and skills. There is something deeply satisfying with how stages commence with an orbit around the character. And if you want to know what Soul looks like, then notice that some characters will have animations depending whether you navigate their menus right to left or left to right. It's truly amazing, and credit where credit is due, MiHoYo has done excellently in this domain. I come from an era when anime had to be consumed dubbed, and as such, I don't play any anime-inspired medium in anything other than Japanese. This is how I've protected myself for decades from the cringe that is generic anime plotlines. If I can't understand it, it can't hurt me. For those of you bolder than I, you do have the option for English dubs. There's even Chinese if you wish to get a head start for the inevitable rise of the glorious People's Republic of China. Mechanically speaking, as far as gacha go, Zenless Zone Zero is rather complex. Luddites will argue otherwise, claiming that the only thing you have to do is mash buttons to win. First of all, this is a gacha. The skill level to entry will always be at the floor. Secondly, while it's true that you can mash buttons to make progress, that is akin to saying that you can use your bare hands to dig through a mountain. Can you do it? Yes. Should you? No. Yes. It all starts with putting your team together. Agents aren't just designed to appeal to us gamers, but also around particular playstyles. Consider not just their stats, but also their movesets and abilities. I'm not exactly teaming with money on account of the thousands in debt I'm in over with other gacha games, so I've only focused my resources on the free characters, but here's what I can say. Ambi, our burger-loving American Idol and delightful personality, focuses on chaining basic attacks, followed by delayed inputs or special attacks. This massively increases her daze and damage output. Daze allows you to put your enemies in a comatose status while you mercilessly beat their helpless bodies to death. It not only stuns the enemy, but also makes you deal more damage towards them. Corby, my beloved and possibly deranged maid, has movesets and combos focused on sustaining the final chain in her attack to deal massive damage. She is designed around taking advantage of dazed enemies. Nicole, the financially irresponsible leader of a mercenary corps, is best utilized for dealing AoE damage and forcing enemy units together. Her special attacks also proc debuffs on her enemies, which, when paired with a dazed enemy and the solid attack unit, allows you to melt your enemies. When you have an understanding of this, you can then begin to form truly effective PMCs. Now, the general consensus on what this looks like is to have one stun character to apply daze, one attack character to take advantage of the dazed enemy, and a wild card of either a support, anomaly, or defensive character for the third. With your team put together, you can now focus on ensuring your agents are equipped with top-of-the-line military equipment. The way the game is designed will mean you can upgrade all your stats at roughly the same time. So, if you had to prioritize these stats, you would prioritize the level of the character, followed by W engines, attributes, core skills, and finally discos. W engines are giant techno balls, and they will be your primary source of damage. Next is your attributes, which give you small incremental increases to your damage output. Core skills, on the other hand, increases the potency, the energy, maybe even the seed of a character's passive, while also boosting an additional stats. Lastly, we have discos. Discos can be great at improving your character. They offer great passives and good overall stats, but unfortunately, outside of their core stats, they are completely randomized, and worse still, tied to a certain position on the wheel, meaning that you'll need to farm quite a bit of them to get the best stats for a particular character. This is awful. One of the worst mechanics for any video game. Thanks, Xi Jinping. Speaking of farming, the menus and layouts make it relatively easy to find what you need and tell you where you need to go. In this game, you are limited to the number of resources you can farm via energy. This energy replenishes over time and will completely replenish in 24 hours. You can also get a daily boost of energy from the coffee shop, where the famous Tin Master himself will whip up a legendary latte. If this face doesn't scream pure, unadulterated Riz, then I don't know what does. With your energy limit in mind, it's worth noting that you should only farm what you need to reach the maximum for your current level bracket. The max level for everything is tied to your Internaut level. The higher the Internaut level, the more resources that will drop for the same expended energy. So it's kind of a waste of energy, both metaphorically and literally, to spend this time beyond what you need until you have reached your max level. As for the Internaut levels themselves, expect to hit various walls as you level up. There are 65 levels that get increasingly difficult to attain. Levels 1 to 26, easy. 26 to 30, manageable. 30 to 34, well then, 35 to 36, yeah. I dread to see what the next wall looks like, but I expect it will take weeks, if not months, before someone reaches the maximum level. There are various other game elements to cover as well. The big ones are Notorious Hunt. These are essentially regular boss fights that provide essential gear to level up your characters. They can only be done 3 times a week. Next is Hollow Zero. These are gauntlets. You navigate down various levels, fighting enemies while finding power-ups and other tools to enhance your odds. They can dish out a ton of resources and can be worth your time. The last big item worth explaining is Shiyu Defense. These are even tougher boss fights than Notorious Hunt, but they can be done an unlimited number of times to get as far as you can, which right now appears to be level 10. On top of this, there are also a ton of side quests, trust events, and bonus stories. There's even a shop to play minigames. The amount of creativity they take with the various elements in their game is quite something. Conclusions. Zenless Zone Zero is many things. It's a compelling fighting game trapped behind some of the more toxic elements of Gacha. I was compelled to play it through forces beyond my control, and you know what? I enjoyed it. Everything in this game is beautifully crafted. My only gripes would be the repetitive nature of the combat for anything outside of stories. Farming resources at the virtual reality center all feels exactly the same. Maybe an auto battle feature? Not sure. It doesn't help that MiHoYo is known for a very low roll count, meaning less characters to spice things up with. Time will tell if this becomes another hit like Genshin or fades into obscurity. Regardless of the outcome, gacha games will continue to be around for the foreseeable future, and the fan art will continue to be made. I give this game an arbitrary score, equivalent to the odds of pulling a super rare agent over the odds of getting a pity pool. Don't think about that. Anyways, thanks for watching, and have a beautiful day.